Hello guys, I'm going to talk to you today about how to use a cross miter saw. Sometimes on the job site they'll call it the chop saw. So if your boss tells you go get the chop saw, he's basically referring to this cross miter saw. Okay, and there's some safety factors we like to look at. First of all, it's just sitting on a table here, but this is movable, this saw, and you can put it, there's several places, but first of all, to carry it, you got a handle here. This is the grab point where you grab it, and a lot of times we'll grab the back side, get balanced with it to carry it and lift it to carry it in the house and back and forth. Thing weighs probably about 40 pounds, 35, 40 pounds. It's kind of a little cumbersome, so be careful with it. Take good care of it when you're hauling it. The other thing is, if you look at it, I've got it in the down position. This is what we call the cross miter slide. So we can make a 12-inch cut with this. There's a slide bar here. Well, we lock the slide bar in place so it doesn't move, and I'm going to show you how it actually moves in place. And this is a typical way we'd want to haul it safely. All right. So once you get it set up where you want it, I'm going to show you how to actually set the saw up and move forward with it. The first thing is I like to release the slide back and forth, and to do that, there's a little knob right here, and all you got to do is loosen it up a little bit, and that allows us to slide back and forth. That'll be after I release it. And then there's another button just off underneath the motor housing here. There's a little button here. Sometimes you got to push down just a little bit to release it, and then it comes up. Okay. Now you can check it. The slide works fine. Okay. It goes up and down fine. And then the other way to bring it back to normal, or we bring it to what we call our 90-degree angle cut to cut it. We got an angle gauge here, and there's a 0 point. We bring back, this is your setup point. This is probably 90% of your cuts are going to be made this way. So again, we got the cross sliding of it mechanism, where the blade comes down and it's ready to go. So let's talk a little safety on this first of all, and what type of cuts can be made on this safely and to be safe about it. First of all, it's got this arm, or this fence that comes up and down, and it's actually loaded up, spring loaded, so that when you go down with it, it exposes the blade, and then when it comes up, it covers the blade. Very important, because if I'm cutting a piece of wood, and we'll take a 2x4 here, and I got that 2x4 sitting out there, when I come down in the cut motion, I'm going to be making my cut. And then as soon as the cut's made through, and as I come back up, the blade covers up for you. So it's very nice to have. This has another great feature. This saw actually has a light on it. Okay? And it's pretty cool because it's got a laser light. So and I'm going to lift this up for a minute. As I come down, and if you look underneath that light there, there's a line. That's the blade right there. So it shows you exactly where the blade cut and where you're going to be cutting from on the saw. So it sets it up. So it's a nice little feature. Most saws have these. Pretty common. So they call it a laser light. So it helps you do your cut the way you want it. The other thing is we can do with this, guys, we can do angle cuts, and it'll lock for you. And it's set up for contractors because the first point it locks at is 15 degrees. As finish workers or trim workers, 15 degrees is a critical degree to work with, especially when we're doing laying out for bay windows, doing trim work. You may need to use that 15. The other one, 22.5. Okay, and then the next degree it locks in is at 31.5. Okay. And then the last one, of course, the lock in is at 45. Now you can lock in at anything in between that if you want. You just set your degree that you want, lock it down, and there's your lock point. All saws, the majority of them are set up like this where they have a lock point. It won't move now, it's set in place. I'm going to bring it back to the 0 point. It'll lock at 0 for me. When I get close to 0, I can release this, and there's the 0. I can do the same thing going the other direction. Okay? So you either way, back and forth, left or right, for whether you're doing a 45 degree, 32, 31.5, or whatever, you can set it up. Now, the other thing this does, which is really cool, that's for angles. Now, let's say I need to do what we call a bevel cut. You can do, and we do this a lot when we're doing hip roofs, building the rafters for them. There's a little arm back here. Actually, I'll loosen it up, and I can turn this over to a beveled angle. And I can actually go all the way over to 45 degrees if I want. It'll keep rotating, and you can lock it into place wherever you have. You got your gauge that sits along here. So now you can do your cut. You can do a bevel cut. And you can do a bevel cut with an angle cut. So it's like, that's what we call a compound angle, okay? So I'm gonna bring it back to the straight point, lock it in place. And the other thing you wanna be careful of for safety is we have this back fence here. The wood, you don't want to cut it out here. If I cut out there, it's going to give, the board's going to lift, you're going to get some kickback. The wood needs to rest against the back fence when you're cutting, okay? And again, I use the 2-inch rule. Keep your fingers 2 inches away. Now, what I kind of like is we got this yellow guard here. That's probably about 1.5 inches, 1.25 inches or so. I like to keep it, sometimes you can paint something and put a line there. So you guys keep your fingers 2 inches away. You don't want those fingers real close to the wood or with a blade when it comes down. You don't want it near it. You want to make sure you're away from that, okay? The key is just keep it against the fence. One other thing, let's say you have something really small to cut, a smaller piece, and you got to break the 2-inch rule, I'll call it. See the good old push stick I talked about? Use that instead of your fingers, hold it in place, cut it. Again, it's against the fence, but that way, if it decides to kick or something happens, cut the push stick up. And that happens a lot where we gotta get pretty close to the blade. And as contractors, sometimes you're like, I'm in a hurry, I gotta do it, I know I can do this cut, and all of a sudden something goes wrong and you cut yourself. Okay, so be very careful as you do that. I'm gonna demonstrate a cut, I'm gonna run one cut through. The other thing we suggest is when you chop with these saws, especially if you're cutting a bigger piece, I'll demonstrate it as if I was. You want to pull the saw out, push it down, and then push into the wood. Or if it's smaller like this, I actually could just do the straight down chop cut. Now, cut in a slow, even motion. Okay? Again, if you cut too fast with it, it's unsafe. You could cut yourself, kick back, something could happen. It's not made to jam through, and that's when you cut your fingers off, because if you're here and you jam it through and you wasn't paying attention, there's a thumb going, and it will take your finger off. So I'm going to do a quick demonstration. I'll stop talking as I'm doing the cut. I'm just going to make a straight up cut so you can see what it is, and then I'll just tell you the process. This one, I like to put a pencil mark or a dot wherever I'm going to cut it, and then I come down and I cut on either side of the line that I want to cut for my accuracy. But right now I'm just going to give you a straight demo cut so you have an idea how it works. So here we go. Again, stand to the side. I'm going to turn it on. I'm going to keep my fingers away. I like to put my fingers or hands like this. I'm good. I'm probably 3-4 inches away from the blade. I know I'm good. I'm going to run the saw down through it. But I've got a little pressure pushing against that guard so it doesn't kick back on me. Some of these saws, they've got extensions you can get, especially if you're cutting longer pieces of wood. You can put some extensions on it that you can cut off of. But this one I'm just going to give a quick demonstration. So here we go. The start and stop on this is up here. It's got a little safety catch. I'm going to squeeze it. Then got a good break on it. I like that. I like to wait till it stops. I like to do my cut. Release off the trigger, let it come to a stop, and then raise the blade back up. It's a good, safe way of doing it. You'll see, guys, I got a really nice, good, clean cut. This was a cross cut we did. That's why they call it the cross miter saw. It's to cut across the grain. This saw is not made to rip. Do not do this and try to cut that. If you try to cut that wood through there like that, you are going to get the nastiest kickback ever. When you cut it, it will not do it. So don't attempt it. The only way you want to cut is like this. I'll do a quick angle cut, just for sake of argument. I'm going to do the 31, or this is 31.5. Again, hold it. The key thing you want to be careful of here is, now the blade's turned. You think you're safe here with your hand. Now I'm closer to the blade. Make sure you keep your hands back and away. This is where a lot of accidents happen on the job site, is where somebody getting the hands too close, or your arms are too close to where that blade is. So keep it over at an angle. I'm going to again do a cross cut, but I'm doing an angle cut. So here we go. Come to a stop, up, and as you can see, I took an angle cut that's actually a 31.5. Sometimes this happens, that's the cut at the top of the rafter, sometimes it could be. A lot of times when we're doing these angle cuts, that's usually what we're doing. But we may be framing for a bay window, and we may have to come out with that bay and come across. So there's different things we can do with this to cut. That's for frame. You can use this for framing. It's great. You get extremely accurate cuts. You get nice square cuts when you're cutting. The square piece, it'll be perfectly square every time you cut. Whereas when we're using a skill saw, a portable hand skill saw, the accuracy's not always there. And if you want to keep your accuracy and you want somebody to work steady and fast, this is a good tool to use. Now, I'm not saying a lot of times the skill saw comes in handy, especially if you're on the deck, but if you got a cut man and that's what he's doing all day for you, kind of nice for him to have this saw out there. We can also use it for trim work, and I probably use this more for trim as we're using it. And there's different blades you can put on this. As you can see right now, this is what they call a combination blade. It'll actually good for trim work and for rough framing. We're cutting the big 2x4s, the 2x12s, 2x10s. It's a good saw for that. So with that, guys, again, this is called the cross miter saw. Okay, it's also referred to as a chop saw. So if they cut, somebody asks you go get the chop saw, this is it. It's made for cutting wood, not metal. Okay, they make a different saw for cutting metal, and the reason that is this is plastic up here to protect yourself. But remember, 2 inches away. Keep your fingers 2 inches away from the blade. You'll be safe. It's a good saw. Don't be in a hurry. Don't do the jerky motion cutting. When you do jerky motions, you're not thinking. You're getting ahead of yourself, and the potential to cut your fingers off. I want to thank you for listening to us on the good safety advice that you can use on the construction site or in the shop. So again, have a good day. Be safe out there.